Okay, welcome back. We're starting lesson 4 of our guidebook unit, The Stories Julian Tells. So let's begin our lesson for today. In our last lesson, we learned how to combine sentences using subordinating conjunctions such as after, since, as soon as, and while. And we also showed how the character's actions contribute to the sequence of events. So today, we will identify Grandpa and Mary Ellen's feelings, traits, and contributions in the B tree. Now, there's a difference between their actions and their contributions. So remember, every time and every lesson that we do in this unit is preparing us for our culminating writing task that we're going to do at the end of the unit and our end of the unit assessment. So be careful to remember the things that we're teaching, the different things that we're discussing in each lesson. So you will need your character feelings, trait, and contributions chart and your sequence of events graphic organizers. These can be found in your student materials or a resource booklet. So make sure you have those readily available for that portion of the lesson. So now we're going to get into our lesson for today. And we're going to talk about characters' feelings and characters' traits. So before we get into what the difference is between feelings and traits, we'll just kind of list what they have here to give you a moment to kind of think about what you think the difference between a feeling and a trait is. So character feelings: bored, excited, satisfied, nervous, interested. And character traits: stubborn, kind, active, wise, and intelligent. So just think about that for a moment. What do you think the difference is between these couple of things? Well, these few things. Like over here are our feelings and over here are our traits. What's the difference? So if you think about it and you say that feelings are kind of temporary and traits are more permanent, you're on the right path because if I'm bored right now, I can get up and start doing something. I won't be bored anymore. But most of the time, if I'm stubborn, I'm kind of stubborn all the time. Or if I'm kind all the time. So if you're nervous right now before the test, you may be nervous, but as you start taking the test, your nerves may calm. So feelings are things that can be temporary and change quickly, and traits are things that are more permanent. And it takes a lot of time to change these things if you want to change them. Traits are kind of permanent, so sometimes we don't even think about changing our traits. But our feelings are temporary, so we have the opportunity to change those when necessary. So as we go into the lesson, we're going to talk more about characters' feelings and characters' traits. So, what does this quotation tell us about how Grandpa feels? And then what does it tell us about Grandpa's personality? So, just start with those two questions. We can kind of associate with traits, can associate traits with our personality because our personality leans more to our character traits and our feelings to how we feel. So, here's the quote we're going to read, and we're going to think about the difference in how Grandpa feels and the difference in Grandpa's personality. So you don't feel like reading, eh? Feel like running, do you? Then I expect this is just the right time to find a bee tree, he said, taking down his lucky hat. What's a bee tree, Grandpa? Mary Ellen asked. Well, it's where the bees make their home. It's where they keep the honey, the sweetest in the land, Grandpa chirped excitedly. So, what does this question say? What does this quotation say about how Grandpa feels? So if we think about it, we can say that Grandpa feels what? Excited about finding the bee tree. And we know that because he chirped excitedly. He chirped excitedly. So that tells us about how he feels right out there. And it's right in front of us. It says he chirps excitedly. So he's excited about trying to go and find the bee tree. Now, as we think a little deeper or we think a little more in depth about it, what does that say about Grandpa's personality? So I'll give you a minute or two to think about what it says about his personality. Can we say that Grandpa is adventurous? Probably, because he wants to go on an adventure and he's excited about it. So it's something that he likes to do. So we can say his personality shows that he's active or adventurous. He wants to get out, he wants to do something. So his personality could be active and adventurous. So when we think about feelings and traits, remember there's a difference in the two. Now, not that they can't be related, but there is a difference in the two, in of the way a person feels and their personality or their character trait. Now, let's think about Mary Ellen. What is one way Mary Ellen contributes to the story's events? And remember, when we think about contributions, we got to think about what that character actually does. What does Mary Ellen do that contributes to what goes on in the story? So when we think about the text, we talk about at the beginning where she says that they came from the cornfield. What does Mary Ellen do? What is she telling people to do as they're going on in the story? Mary Ellen is contributing to the story because she's encouraging other people to join in with the bee chase. So when she comes up to Mr. Ener, she says, "Come on, join in." So Mary Ellen is contributing to the story by adding other people along for the chase. So it could have just been her and Grandpa, but as she encouraged others to join along, it got more adventurous because more people were joining into the chase. So remember, everything that a character does in a story contributes to the things that happen or the events that happen in an actual story. So when you think about any kind of contribution that a character makes, just think about, okay, well, what did she do, or what did she say, or what was going on? What did that character actually do that actually was relevant or contributed to the events that actually happened in the actual story? So when she says that to Ener, she says to join along. What does he do? He joins along. So then that adds more into our actual story. So that's one way that Mary Ellen contributes to the events in the story. So now that we know about character traits and feelings, and we know about character contributions, you're going to work with your partner to fill in the remaining boxes for Grandpa on the character, feelings, traits, and contribution charts. You're going to use your sequence of events. So you need both papers in order to complete this part of our lesson. You're going to use your sequence of events graphic organizer to help you identify Grandpa's feelings, traits, and contributions, and make sure to include details from the text to support your answer. Now, the only thing you're completing this chart on right now is on Grandpa's feelings, traits, and contributions. So we're working with Grandpa's feelings, traits, and contributions right now. Okay, so you can pause right here and work for a few minutes with your partner on completing this sequence of events charts with Grandpa's feelings, traits, and contributions. All right, so as we close this lesson, in this lesson you learned about Mary Ellen and Grandpa's feelings, traits, and contributions to the events in the story. You also practice identifying character feelings, traits, and contributions using evidence from the text. So we looked a little bit more in detail with what actually happened in the story, and we talked about how Grandpa and Mary Ellen contributed to these events in the stories. So this is all for today for this lesson. I look forward to seeing you again for lesson 5.